Financial Advisors, planning for life. Wealthway Financial Advisors, planning for life.
And good evening, Hampton Roads. Welcome to another edition of Dollars and Common Sense, your local source for objective, unbiased financial advice. I'm your host, certified financial planner Kevin Zivna, coming to you live like I do every second and fourth Tuesday of the month to dialogue with you, take your calls. If you have a question or comment relating to your own personal financial situation or anything I'm talking about here tonight, jump on the phone lines, give me a call, 627-7979. No matter what I'm talking about, if it's important to you, then it's important to me. We'll get you right on air, 627-7979. Wealthway Financial Advisors is the proud sponsor of Dollars and Common Sense. We are an independent registered investment advisor, which means we're legally held to a fiduciary standard to put our clients' interests ahead of our own in any business dealing or recommendation that we make, and that's the way it should be when you work with a financial advisor. As the premier financial planning firm in Hampton Roads, we integrate expert investment management with customized ongoing financial planning advice to help our clients answer life's big financial questions and enhance their quality of life. So by design, we can't work with everyone. We work with a relatively small group of high net worth individuals, but that's one of the reasons we feel so strongly about coming here every second and fourth Tuesday at 6 p.m. That's to reach out and help as many people in the Hampton Roads listening area that we can achieve your measure of financial success. Because it is a core belief at Wealthway Advisors that the overwhelming majority of people in this country have the opportunity for financial security if they choose it. And it is a choice because it takes some time, it takes some effort, and it takes some knowledge. We are here to help. You got to take that first step, though. Pick up the phone, give me a call, 627-7979. Whether you want to talk about anything having to do with the investment markets, the economy, insurance products like life insurance, health insurance, property casualty, taxes, tax planning, tax reduction strategies, retirement planning, retirement plans, 401ks, 403bs, TSBs, IRAs, Roth IRAs, mortgage options, Social Security claiming strategies, or estate planning, wills and trusts. All that and more falls under the umbrella of personal finance, and we're going to talk about it tonight. 627-7979. Tonight we are going to talk about estate planning, wills and trusts. Sort of the last peg of the financial planning stool that usually gets built out. It's not normally the most exciting aspect of financial planning, but we absolutely feel it is a necessary component of a complete financial plan, is to have an effective and well-constructed estate plan. And there was something in the news here in the last couple weeks that kind of spurred the topic for this show. Jimmy Buffett is in the news. He passed away sadly in September of 2023, but now his estate is becoming, or portions of his estate are becoming public knowledge because the two co-trustees of the trust that he set up before he passed away are engaged in a little bit of a dispute. And so, I was a big Jimmy Buffett fan for a good chunk of my life. I mean, I still am. I don't quite listen to the music as much as I used to, but certainly in my younger years, I was a big Buffett fan. Probably saw him 8 to 10 times through the years. I once saw him, about 20 plus years ago up in William and Mary. He played William and Mary's football stadium. One of the things I remember most about that is it was even hotter than it is right now. It was probably one of the hottest days on planet Earth. It was brutal, but we took a bus trip up there, and it was a blast. And Jimmy's just a good, fun-loving, enjoy life type of guy. His music reflect that attitude. And he did a lot of good, forward-thinking estate plan, especially for somebody who had a relatively complex estate. You can imagine somebody with as many assets and interests as Buffett had. In order to have an effective estate plan, it takes a lot of pre-planning work, and Jimmy did that. but yet still running into problems. So here's a little bit of information from an article of CNBC, tell you a little bit of background behind the story and help maybe illustrate some of the problems that come from the estate planning process, even when most of it's done properly. So there's been a lawsuit filed by Jimmy Buffett's widow, Jane Buffett. She filed a petition earlier this month in Los Angeles court to remove her co-trustee, Richard Mosenter, from the marital trust that was created to support her after the singer's death in 2023. And Jane Buffett, who married Jimmy in 1977, alleged that Mosenter, the co-trustee, has been openly hostile and adversarial toward her and has refused to give her details on the trust and its financials. She alleged that Mosenter is collecting excessive fees of $1.7 million a year and that he's mismanaging the trust assets, projecting income of only $2 million a year, implying annual returns of less than 1%. Well, her co-trustee, Mosenter, has filed his own lawsuit in Palm Beach County, Florida, alleging that Jane has been completely uncooperative in his efforts to manage the trust. He said Jane has interfered in business decisions, refused to meet with Mosenter, and breached her fiduciary duties by acting in her own interests. So, Buffett did do a good job in his estate planning. His will, which was first written more than 30 years ago and amended in 2017, and then again in 2023, the year that he died, directed that most of his assets be placed in a marital trust for Jane. And the trust was created for the wife's sole benefit for her lifetime, according to the legal filings. And then the three children that they shared, Savannah, Delaney, and Cameron, are the remainder beneficiaries of the trust, which means they will receive any remaining assets left after Jane's death. And then Buffett also installed a co-trustee to manage the trust with Jane. And so he appointed Mosenter, an accountant who had also been his business manager and financial advisor for 30 years as co-trustee. So made his wife trustee because most of this, the value of the trust would go to support her and her lifestyle. And then he appointed another trustee to sort of handle the business affairs of the trust. And they are extensive, the assets within the trust. They include $34 million of real estate property, $15 million of equity in a company called Strange Bird that Buffett created to hold his interests in various planes. He was an avid pilot. $2 million in musical equipment, $5 million in vehicles, and $12 million in other investments. But one of his largest assets is his stake in Margaritaville, the chain of restaurants, bars, hotels, and merchandising that sort of commercialize Buffett's lifestyle. And so according to the filings, Buffett's equity in Margaritaville was estimated at $85 million. So you got an estate there that's probably close to $250 million made up of a variety of irregular, unusual assets the average person would not have in their own estate plan. But this particular case reflects a very common source of disputes, and that's dueling trustees. And some of the estate attorneys that have reviewed the information said Buffett could have made Jane the sole beneficiary as well as the sole trustee. Yet he chose to have Mosenter, his accountant, as co-trustee to help manage and direct the trust. And that's not an uncommon relationship in large estates such as this. Jane, being somewhat of a lay person and a financial novice, would most likely not have the skill and ability to manage all those various complex financial holdings. So it is prudent then to make another trustee, an equal trustee, somebody who does have that financial acumen and background to help her manage those effectively. So you've got a beneficiary Jane, who doesn't feel like she's getting enough information and doesn't feel like she has any say anymore, and probably feeling like she's not getting enough money from the trust. And then you have the other trustee, Motzinger, the accountant, who is being too paternalistic, and they feel like they can sort of control the information and maybe dribble it out to the beneficiary, and maybe are too controlling of the trust. And then that combination is rife for a lawsuit. And now you've got two of them fighting against each other. So kind of like the two big lessons that come from this complex estate planning example is that the wealth holder, the grantor of the trust, Jimmy, that person in that role needs to communicate the plans for the estate before they pass on, so that no one is surprised, and that you look everybody in the eye and you tell them what your intent and wishes are. And if Buffett had explained the co-trustee roles to both Jane and Mosenter, then perhaps tensions would have been minimized. And then the second lesson is that, well, friends and business associates don't always make for good trustees. Because while it is often is fairly common that people who form trusts name a trusted friend or family member or relative as a trustee, that trustee may have a different relationship with the beneficiary, that was Jane, and can see themselves as carrying out the wishes of the descendant, which is not really the true job of a trustee. The true job of a trustee is to dispassionately follow the directions as they're written in the trust. So when we come back from this break here, we'll dive into some of the common elements of a good estate plan and some of these terms of grantor, trustee, beneficiary. Hopefully will make more sense to you by the end of this show. We'll be right back after these messages. You're listening to Dollars and Common Sense on News Talk 790 WNIS.
Expanding the view of the captain and crew like a man just released from indenture.
Wealthway Financial Advisors, planning for life. Wealthway Financial Advisors, planning for life.
And welcome back to Dollars and Common Sense, your local source for objective, unbiased financial advice. I'm certified financial planner Kevin Zivna, the president of Wealthway Financial Advisors, the premier financial planning firm in Hampton Roads, where we integrate expert investment management with customized ongoing financial planning advice to help our clients answer life's big financial questions and enhance their quality of life. For more information about us, look us up online at wealthwayadvisors.com. All right, tonight we're talking about estate planning, and I'm going to give you an overview of the process and some of the main elements in the estate planning process. I hope to demystify it a little bit. But first, we got a caller on the line. Going to run up to Hampton and speak with Jerry. Good evening, Jerry. You're on Dollars and Common Sense.
Hey, I love the show. I always listen to it. This is Jerry Garcia at Fort Monroe. But listen, sir, I'm going to try to explain this the best I can. But my grandparents and my parents, they have wills, and it seems like when people pass away through the years that there's this rush and tendency to get passed away people off of wills. Although my thinking, sir, is, I mean, if they're officially gone and maybe a death certificate or whatever, why is that so important? But I mentioned this to a friend of mine one time, and he's like a lawyer, but he's more like a traffic lawyer. And he said, sometimes, Alan, if people that have been deceased are left on wills, it could open up doors for some of their family members. And, sir, I don't understand that, but I know we keep having to go back and do wills every, year or so, because people pass away, and it just seems like there's an emergency to get deceased people off of wills. And could you just explain a little bit of that? And thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, sure thing, Jerry. If I understand you correctly, I think what you're talking about is when beneficiaries are named in a will. So a beneficiary is the person who receives a benefit from the will or the trust. Beneficiary receives a benefit. And so if you are named in a will as somebody who would inherit something, you're the beneficiary. Now, if the beneficiary predeceases the person who wrote the will, drafted the will, then their share of the inheritance is not theirs to receive anymore because they're not with us anymore. So there are rules to then divide the remaining that person's share to other beneficiaries, but it can get somewhat complicated and convoluted and a little dirty and messy, I guess I would say, if deceased people are still left in wills as inheritors. So it's a good practice to kind of clean that up through regular estate planning checkups and make sure that the beneficiaries that you list in your estate plan are still alive and well to receive the inheritance. So you kind of described it as people rushing to do that. I wouldn't say you have to rush to do that, but because there is, again, a set of rules that would then take that person's share and spread it out appropriately to the remaining beneficiaries. But if the person's intent who created the will was that maybe that money goes down to that person's children, or to go in some other direction if that person was no longer alive, then that's where either those contingencies would be put into the will, or that would be a good reason for why you'd want to remove any deceased beneficiaries off an existing will. So hopefully that made some sense to you there. I'm going to go through a little bit more of the components of a good estate plan here, and hopefully tying that all together will give you a good picture. So, there does seem to be a lot of sort of mystery around the estate planning process. Usually it's because it's due to a lack of familiarity with the estate planning process. I mean, we don't see our own estate plan played out, right? And usually we might only be involved in it one time in our lives, if our parents, when our parents pass away, we might be involved in that because a lot of parents pass down their wealth to their children and their lineage. So it's something that happens so infrequently. And then there's stories of the uber wealthy, right? And their massive inheritance and these secret trusts, and kind of like that thing I just described with Jimmy Buffett, the complexity of that estate. And we're sort of fascinated by the cloak and dagger nature of estate planning and how massive amounts of wealth gets passed down from generation to generation. So you tie those two things together, and it's like, well, this estate planning process seems to be very complex and secretive. Well, it's really not. It's actually fairly procedural when done right and done properly, and it should be done as efficiently as possible so that wealth is transferred as quickly as possible to the inheritors, as is the intent of most people when they create a will. So, some common estate planning documents that you will hear about or you will experience when you develop your own estate plan. Well, obviously the will, right? This document explains how one's property and assets are to be distributed upon one's death. It's really just like the instruction manual. It's the instructions on who gets what, when, in what form. And the reason why it's important to at least have something written down is because, well, we all do have an estate plan, whether we make a will or not. And it's the plan that was established by the laws of the Commonwealth of Virginia. And every state has their own distribution rules that if somebody dies without a will, which is called intestate. If you die intestate without a will, then the state will distribute your assets according to the laws that they have set up on their books. And then we're going to get into more of the estate plan documents that are important, but we're going to take a short break for the news. We'll be right back after these messages. You're listening to Dollars and Common Sense on News Talk 790 WNIS.
Wealthway Financial Advisors, planning for life. Wealthway Financial Advisors, planning for life.
And welcome back to Dollars and Common Sense, your local source for objective, unbiased financial advice. I'm certified financial planner Kevin Zibna, the president of Wealthway Financial Advisors, the premier financial planning firm in Hampton Roads, where we integrate expert investment management with customized ongoing financial planning advice to help our clients answer life's big financial questions and enhance their quality of life. For more information about us, look us up online at wealthwayadvisors.com. Once there, you can request an information packet to find out what it's like to work with us, or sign up for a free quarterly newsletter at wealthwayadvisors.com. Just go to the Request a Consultation page, put your name and address in the dialog boxes, select the appropriate drop-down menu, and we'll get that information out to you later on this week. And that's all we will use your name and address for, is just to send you the information that you request. Or if you'd like to speak to a live human being, give us a call at the office, 456-2200. Want to remind everybody, our next live show will be in 2 weeks on Tuesday, July 8th. But if you can't catch us live every second and fourth Tuesday of the month at 6 p.m., get this show as a podcast. Search for Dollars and Common Sense wherever you get your podcast. Download us, take us with you where you go, and listen at your convenience. And for those of you into social media, we have a presence on Facebook and LinkedIn. You can search for Wealthway Financial Advisors, hit that like or follow button, and about once every week or two, we put up an interesting and informative financial planning post to keep you engaged in the process. All right, 627-7979 if you want to jump into the conversation here. Tonight we're talking about estate planning and some of the common elements that make up an estate plan, some of the documents that you see drafted in a good, complete estate plan, some of the personnel or the roles that make up the people who execute the estate plan. And then finally, I'm going to talk about the three most common estate planning strategies, which are surprisingly simple and easy. All right, so we left off talking about a will. Everyone pretty much knows that a will is the pivotal component of an estate plan. But there are also other documents that go along with a estate planning package. And so there's the living will, or also known as the medical directive for healthcare. So the medical directive for healthcare, this document explains your preferences for life-sustaining treatment if you're terminally ill or incapacitated, right? So if you can't speak for yourself and if you can't make decisions for yourself as it relates to your health care, then you can appoint another person to do that for you. Most of us appoint our spouse if we have one. If we don't, usually a trusted friend or relative would fill that role. And the purpose of the living will is to ensure that your medical preferences, so as it relates to maybe dialysis, CPR, tube feeding, surgery, resuscitation, ventilation, how long you might want to remain in perhaps a vegetative state if you came to that. Make sure all that your wishes are properly followed. And so you put that out in writing in advance while you're healthy. And then another person, you appoint another person who can inform medical staff that these are your wishes and help provide context to the words that you write down in the document. Then there is the medical power of attorney. this document grants someone else the power to make medical decisions on your behalf immediately if it's a durable power of attorney, or upon incapacity, which is known as a springing power of attorney. So document grants someone else power to make medical decisions on your behalf. And so this is a document that you want to have filed with your primary care physician. And a lot of times nowadays we're hearing that when people go into the hospital for major surgery, a lot of times hospitals will provide you this document in advance for you to fill out, and that you do it on their paper with their legal language, and they're more likely to accept it. Because we have definitely found instances, and this goes for all sort of powers of attorney. You're talking about medical right now, but there's also financial powers of attorney, general powers of attorney. The power of attorney is only good, one, as the sort of the paper it's written on, and two, the institution with which you are attempting to exercise this power. And all institutions have their own rules, policies, procedures, preferences, and not just because it's put down on paper doesn't mean they're going to follow it. So having it done properly in advance, filed with the appropriate people, provides a much greater probability of it being executed the way you want. So that medical power of attorney helps ensure that medical decisions such as life-sustaining treatment, certain maybe surgeries, a lot of times end-of-life care. I don't think we do the best job in this country of maybe being as humane with end-of-life care as we could. And a lot of times people who are very elderly, very frail, very infirm, who have very poor quality of life at that stage, we're still conducting some medical procedures on them. Oftentimes, you see it when there is not advance written instruction from the person who's getting the medical care, then the medical staff looks to the immediate family to make decisions. What should we do? Should we operate on grandma, even though she's 95 pounds and hasn't eaten in 4 days? Should we perform surgery on her? Well, when you turn to a family members in those types of crisis situation, almost no one wants to be the one who kills grandma. Right? Like, wants to be the one to say, no, don't perform that surgery. They're put in that very difficult position. And maybe surgery for grandma is not is the most appropriate at that stage. Yet, no one wants to be the one that pulls the plug or denies the procedure. So having these plans, these thoughts, your preferences in place beforehand takes that responsibility largely off of your loved ones to make those decisions on the spot. All right. Then we have the financial power of attorney, and the financial power of attorney grants someone else the power to make financial decisions on your behalf. Again, immediately if it's a durable power of attorney, or upon incapacity, then it's a springing power of attorney. And so springing, it resides in the background until some triggering event, incapacity, happens. That's when that type of power of attorney becomes applicable. Or anyone can give another person power of attorney to do business on their behalf. Again, though, I will state, not every bank, not every brokerage company, not every institution, not every bill-paying entity will necessarily accept a general power of attorney. So they have to be drafted well. They should definitely be done professionally, even though you can do your own. They should be done professionally. And then ideally, you want to submit them to the company in advance and get that company's approval in case you have to use it. It's very problematic when you go to use it and you need to use it right now because the drafter was in a car accident and can't pay their bills, and you're going to step in and do that for them. But then you find out a lot of the electric company and the water company, they won't talk to you. They won't give you any information about the guy. The bills are going to a PO box, but no one has the key, and the bills are just stacking up. And so it defeats the whole purpose of having a power of attorney in advance. So having a durable one in advance and accepted by those other companies is the preferred method. So yes, again, financial power of attorney, paying bills, selling assets, filing taxes. That's something that has to be done whether you're lucid or not, and make sure all your financial matters get taken care of in appropriate time frame. And then one of the last sort of common estate planning documents is a revocable living trust. Now, there's a whole I guess another mythology around trusts, and people don't really understand the purpose of a trust, why they need a trust, the benefits of a trust, and the complexity of having a trust. There are good and valid reasons for people to have trusts, and attorneys love to draft trusts because it showcases their political skill and talent. But I will say from professional experience that there's a lot of administration that comes with putting your assets in trust while you're alive. And so you have to be prepared for that, and you should be relatively financially astute to, if you're going to have a trust, that it gets properly funded with assets. And that means everything you own, in order to put it in a trust, you have to retitle it. So your house, take your deed from your house, has to be retitled in the name of the trust. Your cars, your bank accounts, your investment accounts, everything of main value needs to be titled in the name of the trust in order for it to be in the trust. If you don't go through all that work, if you don't go through all that administration, and it never gets in the trust, then the trust is no good, or it's half filled, and it kind of defeats the whole purpose to begin with. So, but a trust, some of the benefits of having a trust is it avoids the probate process, which is the public legal distribution process of your assets. So a trust avoids the probate process, so your inheritors get their inheritance faster and easier. It keeps your estate private, so anything that goes through the probate process goes through the public court system and is therefore public knowledge. And so the trust keeps it private, and it ensures one's wishes are carried out immediately without delay. So it is a very efficient transfer mechanism at death to move your assets to your loved ones and beneficiaries. But you've got to do your work on the front end properly, completely, dot all the I's, cross all the T's, in order for it to actually work properly. And a regular revocable living trust has nothing to do with saving taxes or estate taxes or anything like that. And a lot of people think that you create a trust for tax reasons. No, that has got nothing to do with a revocable living trust. But know that trusts have their place, they have their role, but they come with a lot of front-end administration, and you have to be willing to roll up your sleeves for them to be effective. All right, going to take our last break. We'll be back in just a few minutes. 627-7979. I'm certified financial planner Kevin Zivna. You're listening to Dollars and Common Sense on News Talk 790 WNIS.
Wealthway Financial Advisors, planning for life. Wealthway Financial Advisors, planning for life.
And Welcome back to Dollars and Common Sense, your local source for objective, unbiased financial advice. I'm certified financial planner Kevin Zibna, the president of Wealthway Financial Advisors, the premier financial planning firm in Hampton Roads, where we integrate expert investment management with customized ongoing financial planning advice. For more information about us, look us up online at wealthwayadvisors.com. All right, tonight we're talking about estate planning, some of the main planning documents that you want to have in that estate plan. Now we're going to talk about some of the people or the personnel or the roles that make up an estate plan. So a lot of people know that with a will comes an executor. When you create a will, you name an executor. And the executor is the one who is responsible for settling the estate as dictated by the will. So that's it. Their job is to follow the directions in the will. A lot of times people think when they are named the executor of the will, that means they're going to get the money in the will. No, that's a different role. The executor is the one who does the work, does all the dirty work and has to contact the banks and the investment accounts, and the brokerage houses, and deal with the real estate and put the house up for sale and pay off all the loans and all that. That's what the executor does. The executor is responsible for following the directions. So they handle probate, paying off debts, distributing assets, filing the final tax return. Yep, we all death and taxes. That's they're a certainty, and you're going to file that last tax return after you pass on. The role of a grantor. Now, a grantor is somebody who creates a trust and then decides what that trust should accomplish. So the grantor is kind of like the architect. Now, you would almost certainly do this in consultation with an estate planning attorney. I would not recommend trying to set up a trust on your own. So the grantor is the technical legal term for the person who establishes the trust. They name trustees and beneficiaries, specifying how the trust will be managed. Okay, so you got the grantor, establishes the trust. Then the trustee is the person who manages the trust for the beneficiaries. So that is very similar to the executor role in a will, except it's done through trust documents and trust language. So the trustee is responsible for carrying out the trust instructions, distributing assets, filing the trust tax returns. That's right, that's another thing. If you establish a trust, they have their own separate tax returns, and then also managing the trust assets. So remember my example about Jimmy Buffett managing the real estate, managing his business interests, managing his music collection, making sure it's preserved, it's being stored properly. All those things are the more money, more problems. That's pretty much true. Money develops its own sort of level of complexity, and if you want to do it properly and efficiently and continue to grow the value of the trust and the assets, then most cases you need to call in some professionals. So the trustee is the person who's responsible for following out the instructions in the trust. And then we have the beneficiaries. The beneficiary, now that's, you generally want to be the beneficiary. The beneficiary is the one who receives the inheritance and benefits from the assets in the trust. So just in a trust alone, you can have three different people: the grantor, the trustee, and the beneficiary, or one or more people can fill multiple roles. So you can be the grantor and the trustee of your own trust, or a beneficiary can be the trustee and a beneficiary within a trust. Then you have a power of attorney agent. That is a person who makes financial and medical decisions on behalf of another person. I kind of talked about that in the document section. They make decisions regarding surgery, treatment, location of services. And then the financial power of attorney, the paying bills, filing taxes, managing investment accounts. And then we have a guardian, also a common element of an estate plan. That is a person who cares for and makes decision on behalf of a minor child. So people who establish an estate plan when they have kids, which you should, you usually name a guardian to take care of your kids if you are no longer with us. So here are three of the most common estate planning strategies, simplest, easiest, most common strategies that for most people who have relatively simple or very well efficiently created financial affairs, you can take care of a lot of your estate plan through these three basic strategies available to all of us. Number one, joint ownership. A lot of us have joint bank accounts with our spouse, right? Well, joint ownership is a mechanism in an estate plan that if one of the owners passes away, the other one automatically, seamlessly becomes the sole owner of that account. So joint ownership takes precedence over anything, any beneficiaries that are listed on the account, any trust language, and any language in the will. Joint account goes to the joint owner when one person passes away, regardless of anything else in your estate plan, any other legal language. Okay? Then the second common estate planning element or strategy is beneficiary designations. Beneficiary designations are people that you list after yourself. They are not owners of the account. They have zero control over the account. But if the owner of an account passes away, then the contents of that account immediately goes, well, within a matter of weeks, put it that way, almost immediately transfers seamlessly, quickly, for no cost to the beneficiaries. So on your bank accounts, you can add a beneficiary. On your investment accounts, on your IRA, on your 401k, on your 403b, on your TSP, all of those you can list a beneficiary, and the beneficiary designation supersedes any language in a trust or in a will. Automatically goes to the other person, to the beneficiaries you list. And then finally, of course, is a will. Having a will is the basic standard document that we all should have, that is the instruction manual for how to pass the remaining assets that you have that aren't titled as joint ownership or beneficiary. That's all the time I have for tonight. Thank you, Jimmy, for the great music through the years. I love listening to you, and I hope the estate plan gets resolved pretty quick.
Sponsored and paid for by Wealthway Financial Advisors. We are solely responsible for its content.
News to keep you informed. Talk to keep you engaged. News Talk 790 W.